I think when it comes to World War One, it's definitely a complex situation. I obviously, as an Australian, have probably a bit of a different perspective to you on Kaiser Wilhelm's reasonings and how that war all began.
Of course,
and that's why I kind of wanted to touch upon Bismarck and that era, because that was such a groundbreaking time for global systems, and Prussia in many ways led the world in what they did. And I wanted to understand how much the Germans of today are proud of that era, or they also look at that, they just look at the past in general as a...
I think it's very tricky. I think Germans try to be proud of the post-Second World War era. Right. Because just, again, very often this era of nationalism, again, not in a bad way, but in the middle of the 19th century, the era of nationalism,
right.
Which had, again, it's not a negative thing, but it could be very easily misused. People understand that this is a little bit of a slippery slope. So therefore, the German identity is much more about how they managed to rebuild after World War II, with all the help and everything, but they managed to create within 80 years a normal society, which is, I think, if you just take a look at other armed conflicts and other conflicts in the world, it's more than remarkable.
Yeah, I think that actually is an interesting idea, trying to evade the nationalism, because I'm talking about that era with a very positive perspective, but at the end of the day,
it could be misused.
Yeah, and there was a point in the 1890s where anti-Semitism was at a very high perspective, and Frederick II, I believe, came to a synagogue to try to buck that idea and buck that trend in many ways. So that, I guess, comes back to not looking at the idea and the flow of where things were, but rather the people and their personalities, trying to get the best character traits out of them.
Right. And you have to know that, unfortunately, I think it's unfortunate that very few youngsters get acquainted with the nuances of history, and to be able to have that historical perspective of how history developed, how it brought us today to this point. I think history education should definitely be getting more attention in our societies, but it has to be done in a way that it doesn't paralyze us.
Right. So understanding history so that you can learn how to best tackle today.
I like this very much, the imperative in the Torah and the fifth book of Moses at the very end, when just before Moses blesses the Jewish people, there's a song, Ha'azinu, and there is a sentence there, Zechor Yemot Olam, remember or set in front of your perspective always the days of old, the days of the world, Binu Shenot Dol Vadol, and to understand the years of the generations. Now, what does it mean, year? The word Shenot could be also interpreted in the word Shinui. Understand the differences. Understand why certain ideas and ideologies strove in certain times, certain period of times, have an understanding, have an overarching view of the past. Go try to see what happened in the past and try to understand how could you take out the good and implement it in today's society without bringing all the bad with it. I think this is, understand why we today in 2024 are different than 1890.
Yeah, fair enough. Are there any ideas or perspectives that I haven't quite touched upon that you'd like to...
covered quite much, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Is there any final words or remarks that you'd like to say while the camera's here?
So I really just wish the Aleph Institute for his remarkable work